also need to get we're live. I also need to get an intro, by the way.
Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is William Rochelle with UBU Live, and I am here with my friend, I'm happy to say, Lynnaire Johnston, and I call her the queen of LinkedIn. I think she calls herself a LinkedIn enthusiast. But every time we talk, and you guys kind of heard a snippet of this, I learn something new. And that, my friends, is why we do this, so that we can become better people on LinkedIn. We can become better candidates. We can become better hiring managers. And Lynnaire speaks in a way that she slows it down enough so that you can digest it. And then after the call, you're left with all these things, these little nuggets that you try to apply. And some of them I've applied well. and some of them I'm like, well, did she say do this or do this? So welcome, Lynnaire, and thank you so much for showing up and always showing out for us here.
Pure from New Zealand, and it's fabulous to be back, Bill. Thank you so much, and for that wonderful introduction. Yes, I do tend to overwhelm people a little, I think, with my enthusiasm for LinkedIn, so I apologize in advance.
No, it's well worth it. I mean, what we want to do is we want to get the most out of it. Yeah. And none of us are, well, you're an expert, but most of us are not an expert on how to market ourselves. And that's really what you bring to the table for me.
Well, I really like to help people be unforgettable on LinkedIn. And that's an easy word to say, but it's a harder thing to put into practice. But I really believe that LinkedIn is one of those platforms that a little bit of change incrementally every day, every week is going to make a difference over the long term, because LinkedIn, Bill, is a long game. It's a marathon. It's not a sprint. And so if you're going to make an impact here at all over time, then you really do have to realize that it's going to take a bit of time. And yes, from time to time, you might get put into LinkedIn jail for various offences, most of which you'd have no idea what they are. So sorry about that, Kenneth. I hope you'll be back with us soon.
He's on YouTube. So before you dive in, I have a couple of questions, and then the floor is yours. I've been attending your not the roundtable yet, not the Zoom roundtable, but a couple of your other events. And one of the things I believe came up was that LinkedIn engagement is down. Okay. All right, good. So I understood that correctly.
Yes.
So I'd love for you to talk about why we think that is. I remember the conversation. I don't remember, or perhaps I didn't get the entire overview of why it's down. And then the second part, well, let's just go with that one.
Yeah, let's start with that. Otherwise, I might not even remember the second part of the question by the time we get to that bit, Bill. All right, so engagement is down because organic reach on our posts is down. So over the last year or so, LinkedIn has changed the algorithm so that organic posts, so that's the kind of posts that you and I are creating and putting on LinkedIn, do not get the reach or the visibility that they used to. And whatever we think about that, which is mostly, oh no, the world is ending, whatever we think about that, engagement is tied to that, because people can't engage on your post, that's liking or commenting or reposting. They can't do that if they can't see the post in the first place. But one of the major changes there's been on LinkedIn, and this is a bit counterintuitive and quite contrary to what I've just said, is that engagement is the new way to get visibility on LinkedIn, because reach is so far down now. And so we need to find other ways, Bill, to be able to have our content, have ourselves seen across LinkedIn. And if we can't get that from posting what else can we do? Well, one of the things we can do is engage on other people's content. And if people that we know who are in our network put out high quality content like you do, then that's a no-brainer to get across there and be one of the first to make a comment that adds value by sharing more information on idea, an opinion, asking a question, so that more people will see it. Because while engagement itself is down, it's not down as much as organic reach is, but we also now have a new facility or feature whereby we can see the number of views our comments have received. And it's now not uncommon to get more views on your comments than on your actual posts. Now, that tells me something, and that is that we need to be commenting more. And I'm not sure if we did talk about this last time, but a general rule of thumb used to be 5 comments on other people's posts before you post your own, and then another 5 after. Now it's 10, and on either side. Now that takes.
So that's the algorithm. And how do you know that for sure? Is that in writing, or is that what you found?
Recently, the 2025 LinkedIn algorithm report was published. That's written by Richard van der Blom, who's in Spain, and he's well known for producing this report every year, and it gets bigger and bigger and more detailed all the time. So in this, it just came out last month, in this, he said that all of these things that I'm just telling you, that reach is down, engagement is down, but being able to see our engagement and to get involved with engagement it's like the new holy grail, or the new black of LinkedIn, if you like. It is the one strategy or tactic that we need to be using to be seen on LinkedIn, to be visible. Because what happens when somebody sees you've written a great comment, they go to your profile, they look at you, find out more about you, hopefully follow you or connect, and then see your content. So that whole visibility thing ripples out.
Excellent. So question number 2, when you get invites to be a part of someone's network or whatever, do you accept them all?
No.
Okay. I get more invites to subscribe to something than I do actual real people asking me to connect.
Yes.
What's the difference in subscribing to something versus connecting with someone?
Connecting someone is a two-way relationship. If I've reached out to ask you to connect, you actively have to say yes. So that is tacit agreement then that we can talk to each other, send messages, interact on each other's content, that kind of thing. If you just subscribe to my newsletter, but you're not following me or connected to me, then you have no other connection to me except via that newsletter. So you may, for example, only see my newsletter drop into your inbox when I publish it, but you might not see any other of my posts at all. So the two are distinctly separate, Bill. They're not the same thing at all. One is about the relationship between you and I. The other is about content and the visibility of that. Now, I have to say, though, while I've got an opportunity to do this, that having a newsletter on LinkedIn is a really good idea, because it's very easy to get subscribers, because every time you connect to somebody new, they get an invite to subscribe. And so
maybe that's it.
Increases a lot quickly.
So recently, my newsletter, it started, I think I talked about this last time. It gets to a certain number and then it goes back down.
Yeah.
It gets to a certain number and it goes back down. And now it says I'm up by 200%, but then it says I'm down subscribers by 30 people. So that doesn't map up.
No, and I think that taking LinkedIn's analytics absolutely literally is not really a good move, because you'll find if you look around different parts of your own profile and analytics on the same day, you'll get 2 different numbers for the same thing. So
Yeah,
explain
absolutely.
that to me. It doesn't work, does it? Can I just go back to David's question about the criteria to connect, though? Is it okay if I do that for just a second?
Go ahead. Let me find David's question. Do you remember
It
it?
was just the one above the one that you've got on the screen at the moment. So I think that David's asking why I might decide to connect to some people and not to others. The first thing is whether they've bothered to send me a personalized message. And if they do, that's already a tick in the yes box. If they haven't, well, I have to understand that if they're on a free account, they may not be able to. So I've got to be a bit open around that one. The next thing I look at is geography. Where are they? Do they live somewhere in a country really that I do business? And if they are, then that's another tick in the yes box. If they're not, then it's more likely I'll be to say no. Do they work in an industry where I know I'm going to be spammed the minute I connect? And some industries are better at having people in that than others. And so if I know that person is for example, what can I say? Say a YouTube person who I know is going to want to help me improve my YouTube channel, then I'm more likely to say no. If I think that somebody's content has good value and I'd like to learn more about them or what they're talking about, then I'll definitely say yes. So my thing this year is learning about AI. And so if somebody works in the AI field, then I am more likely to say yes. I will also sometimes say yes to competitors who work in other countries too, because that way I've got an idea of what they're doing, and they can see my stuff, but that's not a problem for me. The world's big enough for both of us.
I was
So
about
those
to
are some of
ask,
the
are
criteria.
there really any competitors out there, or are we just people in different regions?
Oh, I think that's a very good point. And I often call it co-opeters because the LinkedIn industry where I work is filled with people who want to help other people. And we don't only want to just help our clients, we want to help each other because we believe the more that we all know about LinkedIn and how to use it, the better everybody is going to be. And LinkedIn is going to be a better place. And so you'll often find people who could be said to be in competition with each other working together. So I've got a friend in Australia. Notice I said she's a friend in Australia who does LinkedIn profiles, and I'm doing a live stream next week about LinkedIn profiles, and she's my guest. And that's the cooperation that I can see often happening between people who are doing very similar things in different parts of the world. But I do think that we all have our own unique way of working. And so her clients work with her for specific reasons and mine for mine. And I think that means that there's plenty of room for everybody.
I agree, and once we realize that and realize that we're not in competition with anyone but ourselves, then we're able to help other people grow as we grow ourselves. Now, I'm going to go back to you and David because I'm stuck on the criteria. So my feeling is that the more people that I accept, the broader my reach becomes, because then I get cast, the net becomes wider. When I write something or comment on something, because I'm a first connection with that person, then whoever they're connected with gets to see it as well. Is that a incorrect way of thinking or a less targeted way of thinking?
No, it's not. It's a good way of thinking, but there are some caveats to that, which I think are worth knowing. The first is that your organic reach is dictated to an extent, not hugely or largely, but to an extent, by how many more followers you have than connections. And that's a very weird way to do it, I think. But certainly if the gap between your connections and followers is quite small, then it's harder to get reach, is basically how that works. So you want more followers than you do connections is the critical thing there. Other thing too, I think that's important is to recognize how active the person is that you are connecting with. Will they engage on your content, or are they just connecting with you to try to sell you something? Because if it's that, they're not going to engage in on your content in any meaningful way at all. You are just a notch on a bedpost for them, another arrow in their quiver, if you like, just someone else that they can sell to. And that is not helpful for you. You want to be connected to people who have a good sized network to get that wider visibility. And you want to make sure that they are active on LinkedIn and they're even here all the time, because a lot of people don't even necessarily visit their LinkedIn profile once a day, once a week, even once a month. And sometimes that can happen. And so you are putting effort into that person for no reward at all that you can discern, because they're not going to have a conversation. They're not going to develop a relationship with you or get involved in your content. And if they're not putting up content that is useful to you, the value of that connection is even lower.
Okay. I am going to do something I've never done before. We're at the 15-minute mark. So I'm going to just say that so that we're always in line with what you want to discuss. Kenneth Dunner tells me I talk too much during my
no, that's not true. No, that's not
during my shows. So for the next 15
You're the
minutes,
host. You're the host. You get to talk as much as you want.
but my goal is to educate others and to educate myself. So really, it's not about hearing me talk. It's about learning. So is there one thing right now in this next 15 minutes that you want to hit on really hard?
Well, I think that the important thing to recognize at the moment is that LinkedIn is changing dramatically and very, very fast. And what worked for us before is not working for us anymore. And we need to find new ways to be able to make a difference, to be visible, to be seen by those that we want to notice us. Now, how we go about that is going to depend a lot on what we're here to do. Some people are here to find a new job. Some people are here to build their businesses, build their brands. Some people want to be seen as thought leaders. And so whatever your objective is, it's going to depend on the action that you decide to take. But I have found in the last little while that direct messaging people is something that really helps a lot, because a lot of people are direct messaging and doing it badly. But when we do direct message, we've got several options that we can use. First of all, we can send just a plain ordinary text message. Everybody's familiar with those. We can send a 1-minute voice message, which most people do not use, but it stands out quite nicely in the message feed. And the third thing we can do that virtually nobody is doing is sending videos. Now, you can you can record and send a video to somebody on LinkedIn on your phone automatically. When I say automatically, I mean immediately. So get up your phone, record a video, send it to you straight away. No editing needed. But you can also send pre-recorded videos. So one of the things that I do in some circumstances in this whole connection process is I send a short video of who I am, what I do, and some resources that people might find of use. So I'm starting the conversation with a new person by sharing something, which is what I want people to know that I do throughout my LinkedIn work, is I share information, just like we're doing here. And so I think that direct messaging is one of those tactics that most people would like to do more of, but they don't, because it takes time. So therefore, excuse me, every time somebody sends you a personalized message, be aware that they have taken the time to do that. Yes, they might have sent it to other people too, but they have taken the time to send you that message. Now, if that message turned up in your email inbox, you would be very likely to click delete, because we're used to deleting messages in our inboxes. It's impersonal, nobody cares. But in a LinkedIn messaging messaging kind of ecosystem, because you are connected to somebody, that is that tacit agreement I talked about earlier, that we can have a conversation and that you will take messages from me. Now, not everybody sees it like that, I confess, but a lot of people do. And those are the people that you are likely to be able to have conversations with. It's you and I have. We haven't known each other very long, but look, here we are. This is the third time I've been on your show. You don't seem to be able to get rid of me, Bill.
And I love it.
But we have this a tacit agreement that we will communicate with each other. I won't ignore your messages. You won't ignore mine. And I think that's really important to remember in this whole direct messaging strategy, if you like. And when you connect to somebody, you have that opportunity to start that relationship off really well by sending a video, by sending a message. You can also, this is a bit of a kind of plus and minus thing. I'm not entirely certain what's going on. We've been able to send GIFs, or you might call them GIFs, those little animated images, with our messages for several months. Recently, LinkedIn announced that you couldn't do it anymore, and they seem to disappear, but now they seem to be back again. And so what we've created is in Canva is a range of different GIFs for different situations that we can then use in our direct messaging. So one of them, for example, says, "Thanks for connecting." Another one says, "Really appreciate having you in my network." And there are others for different circumstances, like commenting on events like this. And so consequently, being able to have all these different options means that your message is going to stand out in the feed, in the messaging feed. And that is visibility. And it's visibility one-to-one. It's not one-to-many. It's not just putting a post out there and hoping that some people will see it, because only a few people will to start with. I think it's something like 10% of your connections will see it, and then it will ramp up from there. But if it's had an engagement. But this is something that's direct, and it's more... It's going to say it's more controllable. It's less reliant on the algorithm, because you choose who you're sending messages to, and you're choosing whether to respond to messages that are sent to you. So for my money, I think direct messaging is something that is very overlooked by a lot of people.
So I do have a question regarding that, because again, I am the opposite of everything that you say you're supposed to do, right?
This is a perfect world we're talking about here, Bill, not the real world, which are two different things.
Yeah, well, it's we're raised certain ways, right? So I am a person that does not click on a link unless I 100% know the person. And
that's fair.
And that doesn't mean that we've chatted on LinkedIn several times. It means I know for sure that you are who you are. Your business is legitimate. I don't click on GIFs. I don't click on anything, because you can put malware into some of those things. So you're saying that you have no hesitation with it. So I'm assuming, ladies and gentlemen, that this is an assumption that because of your expertise in LinkedIn, you feel as if they already have the firewalls to protect the malware from being in that LinkedIn inbox.
I trust them to make good decisions about me, about my trustworthiness. As you just said, the onus is on you as the recipient of my message to decide whether you want to click on the link. Fortunately, the GIF will just play. You don't have to do anything with that. But to look at the video or to open up look at the video or a link, yes, it requires a leap of faith. I absolutely agree. Voice note doesn't, because it comes through LinkedIn's own system. So that's pretty safe.
Okay.
But the whole idea is, yes, you have to build a brand around yourself that reeks of transparency and trust and authenticity, so that if I show up here on your event, people should be able to feel confident that if they got in touch with me, that I would be the same person, that I wouldn't turn out to be somebody who was evil and horrible and did awful things, because they've seen me here live and talking with you. So it's all about putting these different components together: how you post on LinkedIn, how you show up in events, how you message people. All of that comes together for people to make an assessment of you. And most of us are very intuitive, and women, I think, are particularly good at this. And we have a really good BS detector. And
why do women have better BS detectors?
I don't know, and this is not a gender.
I live in fear, so like I can't detect anything.
I think so. I often can feel from the tone of a message I receive, or the words that have been used, or the way the approach has been made, whether or not somebody is going to be worth my while to message and to get in touch with. Hey, Kate, I'm just going to say hi to Kate. Kate's in New Zealand, so and she's one of those cooperators I was talking about earlier, about people who do the same kind of work, but we can work together on. So she's a lovely lady. So I think it's really important for us just to remember that there are different options or different ways to do these things, and not everybody is going to respond in the same way to everything that we do. So you might send 10 videos and 3 of them might get opened and looked at on YouTube, but you might only need 1 of those to get a new subscriber to your channel. And in the meantime, people have learned that you share information about your expertise and that you're a good person to be able to reach out to, and they feel like they get to know you. Bill, I think that's the thing too, is that you and I virtually know nothing about each other personally, right? But we've got a really good feeling about each other in business and on these events. And I think that's what can happen. It's the building of those relationships that is really important. And that's where the opportunities are. Now, you've got a much bigger LinkedIn network than I do. And if I'm on your show,
really.
Well, it certainly looked to me like you do. And if I'm on your show, then people in your network have a better chance of seeing me than if I'm on somebody's show who's got a couple of 100 connections.
Right. Exactly. I agree with that part. I had a great question for you, and it was from David.
Where's David? He's good today. He's firing on all cylinders, isn't he?
Do you know David?
Yeah. He often comes to our own events. He's a great. We like David a lot. Yeah, he's
David.
Great.
You have to connect with me if we're not connected.
Oh my goodness me! You absolutely need to have him in your network. He's a great person. Connections only to verified users. Okay, can of worms here, David. As a married woman whose professional name is not the same as my married name on my passport, I find the verification of profiles to be discriminatory. Now, I am not the only person. Many women in my position feel exactly the same. Now, this means that we are not able to have our profiles verified, which is something that men do not really suffer from. I don't know very many men who have taken their wives' names when they got married.
Or their husband.
Right. Apologies. Yes.
We're inclusive.
You are quite right. And I deserve to be called out for that. Thank you. Yes, absolutely. And so consequently, this means they can't get their profiles verified unless they have an email that is associated with a verified educational institution. It could be a university, or in my country, a polytechnic. Any top tier or higher education will often have access to LinkedIn, and therefore that you could get verification through an email address associated that way. And the same with a company. Believe me, if you worked for Microsoft legitimately or Amazon legitimately, you would be able to get your profile verified because you would have an Amazon or Microsoft email address. And that makes all the difference. So those are two other ways to be able to do that. But I also want to point out something else about this profile verification process. And that is, it is a cyber security risk. You are handing over your most important personal identification document to a third party that most of us know nothing about. It doesn't go to LinkedIn. It goes to an outfit called Persona, which is a third party. And so we don't really know about their security protocols, who they sell this information to, because as we know, data is king. And it is, I think, a major risk to be doing this. And at the moment, it is not one of those things that it hasn't reached tipping point on LinkedIn. It will, I'm convinced, but at the moment it hasn't. So if you don't have a verified profile, it doesn't make you look fake, which I think is where LinkedIn is trying to go with this. But it will do. Eventually, you will not be seen to be an authentic person on LinkedIn if you don't have a verified profile. But I've been on LinkedIn a long time, and so I've got a huge body of work behind me that confers that credibility and that authority that anybody can go and visit. So you only have to take one look at my content, at my posts, my articles, my newsletters, my live events to know that I'm a legitimate person. So for me, that is not such an important thing. But I do believe that we need to be aware of the risks and make a decision for ourselves which way we want to go on this one.
So you touched on two things that I'm going to talk about, and one has nothing to do with LinkedIn. It has to do with discrimination. So you said that this is more discriminatory towards women. Everyone kill me now. But in America, we just released the same thing as far as voting rights. And what they're saying is that women are going to be hit harder because they take on their husband's name. So their birth certificate will never match their real ID. So it creates that same thing that you're stating about women on LinkedIn, but in a much broader aspect. And the second part, I did verify my ID, but as you said, and as I said earlier, I am always nervous about stuff like that. Giving all that data, the front and the back of your driver's license or whatever else they asked for, to a third party. At the same time, we have Doge who just extracted all of our information from every place it can go. So is anything protected right now at all? And we're at 5:30. So we're 30 minutes in. And I'm only doing this, ladies and gentlemen, because I go 2 hours a show. And my friend here, Lynnaire, is very good at sticking to an hour. So I want to make sure I'm respectful of her time and then how much time we currently have. So I'm not doing this to rush her. I'm doing this to kind of get things on a better track.
Okay. All right. I'm not qualified really to talk about what is happening in the United States, as you can probably imagine. But I will tell you my perspective on this about the name thing from my perspective. So my surname is Johnston. That's the name that was on my birth certificate because that was my father's name. I've been married twice. And I do not take in my professional life my husband's name now, and partly because I have had my own surname all my life, and it's part of my identity and who I feel I am. And from my early days when I was in radio, I was a public figure, so therefore changing your name can be really quite confusing for people. But the surname Johnston doesn't only appear on my father's side; it is on my maternal side, and my grandmother's maiden name was Johnston. And consequently, I feel more attached to it than I would do to my husband's name. And my husband comes from England, and so I don't have a direct connection to his family there. I love my husband. He's a wonderful man. However, I do not wish to take his surname professionally. I want to keep my own. And that's how I feel about it. But I also don't quite understand why we still have this tradition where women give up their name for their husband's name. Yes, I can see how it can be a little bit confusing with children if you're hyphenating surnames, which is what I did the first time I got married. But that sounded just pretentious in the end. But I do think that it's important for women to realize that we are ourselves. We are our own identity. We're not just an offshoot of our partners or our husbands or our wives. Let me just put
right
on there, right? And I think that it is important for us to make our own decisions on this one. And I know that some people have had passports set up or renewed in their married name simply so they can get LinkedIn verification. And my attitude to that is you're just playing into their hands, really.
Right. I agree. And I'm not you, so I can't speak on behalf of women out there, but I do understand keeping the professional name, and I do understand changing it when you have kids that go into school, because it just makes it easier for everybody around.
Sure.
And then you don't have to correct teachers. No, I'm not Mrs. Connors. I'm Mrs. Johnston, Miss Johnston.
It's a minefield, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
But, and everybody has different ideas around all of this. So
yeah, I have one friend that's been married, 6 times. So her name is Doris.
My case.
But she hyphenated it, so it's Doris Morgan Johnston Fred. I'm just like, okay, I've forgotten the last name. There's another one in there.
Oh my goodness me! Just call me Doris. Yeah.
Yeah. So finally, I talked to her because we're at the age we're not getting married again, and she said, I think I'm just going to go back to my maiden name because that's the professional name, and that's the beginning of all the other hyphens that go along with it.
It's not just surnames either. I've got a client whose first name was Elizabeth on her passport, but everybody knows her professionally as Lizzie. She had the same problem.
Yeah. It's unique. I'm more unique to the female gender than the male. But anyway, that's a divergence off of why we're here. So let's get me back on track.
Okay, let's get back to LinkedIn.
Okay. So a couple of things going back to what I was asking before. When I reject the invites to be someone to subscribe to someone's newsletter or whatever, is that damaging to me?
No, because you really only want to see there's no algorithmic damage to you and no reputational damage, because nobody can see that you have done that unless they are specifically looking. In which case, really, you need to wonder why they would be looking at you. But you do not want to be overloaded with lots of in your notifications with newsletter after newsletter after newsletter on topics that you are not interested in. So I'm very careful about what I accept in terms of newsletters. I accept newsletter subscription invitations from people who write about LinkedIn, and now people who write about AI, because those are the two things that I'm really interested in at the moment. So send me something about Bitcoin, cryptocurrency, YouTube's. I'm simply seriously not interested. I do not have the time to read all that content, and we're deluged with it all on LinkedIn. There's huge amount of information here, and we have to be very careful about what we choose to put into to what we intake, or we start to just get very distracted and fractured, and we're not focusing on the things that are important. Now, when it comes to company page invites, I will pretty much always say no to following a company unless I know the person, because that company could then use LinkedIn advertising, say that boost a company page post, which my name, because I'm following that company, could then be associated with. And I'm not willing to have my name associated with companies I know nothing about, who have not asked my permission because they don't need to have my name there. And this is like, it happens on Facebook too. So-and-so follows a certain company page. And that does look good for the company, but what happens?
It looks like you're endorsing them.
Yes. And I'm very careful about who I endorse, because that can lead to reputational damage if you're not very careful, right?
Right.
And so you want to make sure that you are doing these things aware of the risks, or of the ramifications, maybe, or the consequences of what you're actually doing. And so there is less risk in turning down accepting a subscriber newsletter subscription invitation than there is in a company page follower invitation. Few companies, it must be admitted, are doing advertising. But the problem is that as LinkedIn moves more and more towards a pay-to-play model, more companies are going to have to advertise to get the same amount of reach, or better reach, than they're currently getting. And so I think that advertising is going to become more prevalent in our news feed. So we will see more adverts by companies. Now, if you look at your news feed now, the top, maybe not the first post, but certainly the second post in your feed is going to be an advert for a company. And we will see more and more of that as time goes on, I think. So
that's not just me.
No.
Okay. Because I am finding that I have to scroll down almost through the entire, I'm doing it right now, through the entire page to get to a human that is posting something. But most at the top of I'm looking at Adobe. I'm looking at a news alert from Citizens Digital. I don't know what that's about. IFMA, the Food Away from Home Associations. These are all ads.
Yes.
So if I continue to scroll down, I'll start to see something.
Well, that would be nice, wouldn't it? I hope so, Bill. But the other thing that you'll notice, and this is a relatively new change too, is that the posts by humans, by you or by me, that you see will have been put there because somebody else in your network has liked it or commented on it. So keep scrolling and tell me if you think I'm right, that above every post there's a little sign that says so-and-so liked this. And when you look at that person, you'll see that they're a first degree connection. And so the posts themselves are from second degree connections. So we are not seeing so much content from our first degree connections in our feeds as we once were. We are now seeing content from second degree connections. Is that a good thing? Well, it certainly gives us an opportunity to widen our networks, doesn't it? Because the minute you've commented on somebody's post, there's no reason why you can't go and say, hey, that was a great post today, really enjoyed it, made a comment, love to connect, or words to that effect, right?
Like David.
Like David, yeah, indeed. And you've already got that link then established, and a relationship's underway because you've shown that you're willing to engage on somebody's content. And I think that's a really positive way of being able to grow your network. But the point is, the content you are seeing in the feed now is overwhelmingly commercial. More than 50% of it is commercial content. Some of it will be those ads, some of it will be LinkedIn's ads, some of it will be LinkedIn Learning, could be anything else. But most of it now, when I say most of it, that's not quite the way I mean it to sound, but certainly over 50% of what's in our feeds is not stuff we actually want to see.
Yeah, at all.
I don't think that that's a good idea. I think LinkedIn is shooting themselves in the foot on that one.
They are, because when I actually go to the feed, I now don't look at it as much. I go to my actual feed and look at my posts, and then look at who's commented on my post, because the feed is always advertising Microsoft entities that I'm really not interested in.
Yeah.
And I have to go so far down. Now, one of the things that I learned from Lynnaire's last event is don't only comment on your first person contacts messages. Try to look at other people's messages and comment on those as well. But what you didn't tell me is how do I find third person connections to count on when I'm scrolling through and seeing nothing but ads? And as you just said, if I see a comment, it's because someone in my first degree commented on a second degree person's.
Yeah. So a really good way to find third degree connections is to look at posts of your second degree connections. And those are ones that are now you often see in the feed. And you'll find quite often that people who comment on those posts are third degree connections. Now, they may or may not be people you want to connect with, but that's one good source of them, that's for sure. LinkedIn, when it's pushing people at you, will tend to give you second degree connections rather than third. And you're right, you have to go and hunt for those thirds. But I quite like the idea of connecting to second degree connections because you've always got somebody in common, and that gives you then the opportunity to say we've got several people in common, so several some of whom I highly respect, or all of whom I highly respect, and that then gives somebody more reason to say yes when you reach out to connect to them. It's harder to find that link for third degree connections unless there's somebody. Because if there's anybody in their network that you know, they'll be second degree connections, right? Not third. So it might be that you'll need to go to their profile to find something that is a link between you, or it could be an area of interest, whatever the topic is that was in the post you commented on. That might be your entree to starting a conversation. But we need to think about these things laterally and just be open. So it's a bit like when we meet in person. What do we ask somebody about? Well, obviously who you are, what do you do is a really good opening line. Well, you can't do that on LinkedIn because we're supposed to know because we've looked at your profile. Yeah. And if you do look at someone's profile, there's often something that you can pick up.
That's super interesting. I'm going to come back to that because I have another question for you related to connections, commenting, and everything else. One of the things that I learned from Lynnaire's last event, and notice that I'm not talking about the one that she did with me, I'm talking about the one you did a couple of days ago, was that you have to be intentional with your comments. So when Lynnaire first said start commenting other people's posts, I would like it, and then I would go on the comment link, and it would say, thanks for sharing, and I'd click that and go, because it was easy. I didn't have to read the post. I could say, thanks for sharing, and then she said, no.
I did, didn't I?
You kind of listen, Bill, but you're not, for some reason, taking the entire thing in. So you have to actually say something that is engaging, that gets other people wanting to read your post, and then try from there to determine whether or not you're someone worth getting to know.
Yes, absolutely right. And here's another reason why I think that this is important is if we're not getting the reach or the visibility on our own posts, then by commenting usefully on other people's, where we do get that reach, we're kind of overcoming that problem of not being seen. So, for example, if you write a post about something that I think I have a genuine interest in or experience in or an opinion on, then that's what I want to share on your post in the comments. And I want to do that because I want the discussion to, between you and I to get fired up and for us to have a good debate about it, or, to move on with it, learn more things about it. But also I want other people to know that I am either thinking about this or sharing information about this. So typically what I would do is if, for example, you did a really good article yesterday about this show. Now, what I would typically do then
I did.
You did. And I would go on to that article, which I did, and I would talk about the show itself and add the link to today. And I would also then say something else about why I was attending or what I was going to talk about. I can't remember whether I actually did this or not, Bill, to be honest. But what I am trying to illustrate here is that by doing that, I can then establish my own authority. Now, not just on a post where you've invited me to speak, right? That's a bit of an example that is outside most people's kind of everyday experience with commenting. And so under normal circumstances, if somebody's written a post about something I know nothing about and have no opinion on, I will talk about the post itself, the structure, the heading, the image, the video, something that I can get my teeth into that is in my area of expertise, because I'm qualified to talk about people's posts and the structure and the imagery and the video, but I'm not necessarily qualified to talk about the topic, which might be, I don't know, green energy, for example. But I can do that and showcase my own expertise without taking over the post, without hijacking it. So in my comments on a post, I'm not going to say the post was really great for these reasons and I really liked it, but you need to come and buy from me, because that's not what this is about. That comment would be deleted, and rightly so. I'm not trying to shift it across to me. I'm trying to add to the conversation, but from my own knowledge and my own expertise. So it helps me be seen as credible. And, often, Bill, you can take those comments and turn them into a post of your own. And there's a really good tool for this called AI. And so you can certainly do that, because you can add a comment that is 1,250 characters long. So that's a reasonable length to write a comment. So you can repurpose your comment for a post, but it helps the algorithm. So when I say the algorithm, it helps the post through the algorithm, because a comment that just says, great post, thanks for sharing, is not going to help the algorithm. The comment has to be at least 15 words long, because otherwise the algorithm will they could see it as being part of an engagement pod, because that's what happens with engagement pods. They just put up those spurious, useless types of comments. But you want to add something that tells people you're knowledgeable, you're experienced, and you're an authority in your field. And I think that doing that via commenting is a great thing for all of us, and we should all be doing it more and better. And I know that for myself. I know I should be doing more of that, and I should be doing making more effort with those kinds of comments.
Okay. Well, you have as much time as you want, but it is 5:50. I'm not cutting you off. I'm not cutting you off at 6. I don't want you to think that, but I'm just keeping you aware for your schedule. Everything that you said resonates. Mm-hmm. There is a few things that I always question about just how we can do certain things better, yes, and what the right way to do it should be. So how does LinkedIn view it when I 100% ignore a message in my inbox?
Nothing, and has no effect. There's no effect on that at all. But when you do, it confers relevancy. So if you comment, if you respond to a message in your inbox from that person, and you comment on a post from that person, then you are more likely to see more posts from that person in your feed or in your notifications, because the algorithm has connected the two and it thinks that person is relevant to you.
Okay.
So there's a positive there, but there's no downside.
So I get, we talked about this before. This is redundant if anyone was here before, but I get tons and tons of emails every day, tons. Mm-hmm. And one of the ones that I hate the most are from people that say, hey, I'm a recruiter. We talked about this. And I can get you a job. What type of job are you looking for? And I say to myself, my LinkedIn profile has like 3 pages of what I've done. I have 150 articles. I have every position I've ever held before. I have all the cities that I've worked in. I talk about what my passions are. And you have 2 connections, but I need a job, right? So it's like, do you respond? because there is a thing with bots. The minute you respond, then you just get more messages.
What does your instinct tell you, Bill?
It tells me what you told me last time.
Then let me tell you what I told you last time, which is just to ignore it, because
Yeah.
I just don't see why you should waste your time. If somebody is legitimate, they will have looked at your profile and they will hopefully have a job for you. I'm not
Or
quite
understand
sure.
where I fit, right?
Yeah, exactly. And it's not asking you dumb questions like that.
Yeah. Okay. All right. That I think is my big problem.
I understand it's a fear of
Yeah.
missing out, right?
Yeah. Yep.
But I think that it's more trouble than it's worth, because you could be led down a path that is just simply not going to take you anywhere, and put a lot of time into it. Now, if you've got the time to spend, have at it. But I don't see that there's going to be any value for you there. And I think it's important to check out recruiters. And if recruiters are on LinkedIn with 2 connections, then they are not recruiters. I can't see in any world how that could be possibly the case.
I don't either. And then we also talked about the filtered and other unfiltered. Is there a way to change that setting?
Filtered or unfiltered? Do you mean focused or
Yes,
unfocused?
yes,
Okay.
yes.
No. Now, I will complain loudly and vociferously about LinkedIn's messaging platform, because I really don't think they have done the job at all well. When you consider that LinkedIn is owned by Microsoft, why can't we have the equivalent of our Outlooks on our LinkedIn? That's what I'd love to see, where you could set up your own folders and put messages into them, so you could always find them, because that's one of the problems I have a lot, and I bet other people do too. How do you find messages from somebody from a week ago, particularly if you're not entirely certain what their name was, because you've had 100 messages in the meantime and you'd only had that one interaction with them? And so that's the kind of thing I think that LinkedIn is letting us down on, and is not making life easy for. So no, you can't change those headings, unfortunately, but you can change how you use them. So that if you decide, like there's a jobs tab. Well, if you're not in the market for a job, like I'm not, I might, for example, be able to use that tab for something else. So say I put any messages I received in that about, say, invitations to attend events like this, to either attend or be a guest on events like this. I could put those in the job tab and know that they're there, even though they're not jobs, because LinkedIn's not monitoring that to make sure that I'm using it correctly. They're just giving us somewhere to put things. So you could certainly do that. And there are quite a number of alternatives. But the one thing I ought to mention that I think other people will find as well is that when you have your messages on unread, you will see, yes, most of your unread messages. But if you go into your starred inbox or your connections inbox, you will often find in there unread messages that should have shown up in the unread tab but have not.
Got it.
And that, I think, is really a nonsense. Unread should be unread. So with a lot of things on LinkedIn, you have to take things a bit, think about things laterally, not be too hung up on everything being exactly as it's supposed to be, because it's not like that. It's not a perfect world on LinkedIn. And we've discussed a few of those things already. But I think that just being aware of some of these foibles of the platform can help you with how you show up on LinkedIn. There's no question. But I do wish they would improve the messaging.
I do too. I want to end with LinkedIn etiquette, and okay. I believe that with you, I've had a couple of faux pas. So I joined one of your shows and had my UBU Live tag on it, and that was not intentional. You were using StreamYard; it was already there, and I took it off, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm so embarrassed. And then at the same time, I didn't know what time I was going to go on, and I forgot I had a roast in the oven. so
the one thing about live events is that anything can happen, and often does.
I felt terrible about it, but I actually had private message share and that wasn't her issue because she was
No,
doing
but
a
she was
million
off doing
different things.
something else and didn't spot it. So
Yeah, so I had to say, hey everybody, I hate to stop you, but I'm gonna back out. So should I have just backed out? Because I was afraid that if I just left, it would look like I was disinterested.
Well, that is very true. Fortunately, we know you, Bill, but that was the first time you've been on our show, right? And so clearly you wanted to make a good impression. But the first thing is that coming as a guest on a live show is new to a lot of people. You host a lot of these, but you may not be a guest on many. And so consequently, you don't know how the system works or what exactly happens. And so but the fact that you picked up that your UBU Live was there and you didn't want it there was a really positive thing. And I really give, absolutely kudos to you for spotting that. As for your roast, way more important than being on our event. Now, if I'd got up as the host to go and check the roast in the oven, that would have been a different thing. So I think that it shows you as human, as having a life, and that is the way these things roll. So I would not
appreciate
lose
that.
a moment's sleep over it.
I really appreciate that. My new goal, everyone, is to show up and show up for my friends like Lynnaire. So I wasn't a guest on the show. They asked, does anyone want to come up?
Yes.
And so at the last minute, I just said, sure, I'll do it. Because being on the other side, I've asked that question before and no one takes you up on it. Yeah. And so it feels like, okay, what's going on here? But I didn't really think it through.
Clearly, we knew Bill, and it was a bit of entertainment and a bit of light relief on the topic at hand. So please don't worry about it. It's fun.
So as we wrap up with your segment, and you can have as much time as you want, what did we not cover that you're like, Bill should have asked me X, and I felt like that was a misstep?
Oh, well, I'll tell you what, Bill, if I don't answer that question, you might invite me back.
What?
Yeah, that was rude. I agree. All right. So settle in for another hour, folks. No, I don't mean that at all. One of the questions that I'm often asked about is, and I've got a lot of questions that I get asked about a lot. One of those is about LinkedIn company pages. Now, this is different to your LinkedIn profile. So we have our profile for our own personal information, and many people who own their own businesses have a company page, which is for, guess what, about their business. And so people ask me whether or not they need to have a company page if they're only a small business. Now, it's very true that company page posts don't get a lot of reach. If you think that your own posts don't get much reach, wait till you see the poor returns on company page posts. It's a nightmare, but it is a really good placeholder to have. So it is free to set up a company page. You don't need to have a LinkedIn premium account. Anybody can set up a company page. And if you have a business that's in your own name, or it is your own business, and you've got a logo, then you can, by having a company page, have that logo come through in the experience section on your profile, because you don't want that square box that's kind of that default blank one, or is it gray? Whatever it is, you don't want that showing on your profile. You want to have a logo of a legitimate company. So it confers legitimacy by you working for a company, it might be your own, that has a LinkedIn logo. It gives you an opportunity to write 250, 300 words about your business, what you do, whom you serve, and how you deliver your service or your products. And that is really useful because it's free real estate, indexed by Google, and can be found in searches. So having a company page is a really good idea. Do you have to do a lot with it? You can just share your own personal posts across to your company page. And that means it's starting to be populated with content. So you don't even have to put up individual or original or unique posts on your company page, just share your own. So that is something I think that people are not aware of. They don't tend to think about necessarily, but it is a good idea to do. Company pages.
That is excellent. And ladies and gentlemen, I have a little gray box under William Rochelle Consulting, and Miss Johnston just gave me another bit of knowledge that I did not know, and I've been trying to figure out how to get that box out because it looks like it's nothing. And
Yes.
it's actually a consulting firm, so go with it.
There you go. And if you're working for somebody else and you can't seem to get it right, to get it, the logo to come through, the trick to that is to write the name of the company exactly as they have it on their LinkedIn company page. That may be different from their legal name or their trading name, but it's the LinkedIn company page name that you want to get into and make sure that you have got there copied and in your own, and that will bring through the logo. And it only has to be one letter different, or a full stop.
It won't put it.
And it won't come through. Absolutely right.
One last thing, and then you can duck out.
You say that a lot, Bill. You know that, right? One last thing. I'm a bit like that myself. So.
How long should you work for a company before you put on LinkedIn that you're working with that company?
A week.
A week.
The minute you get the confirmation letter, you can certainly do it before you even start for them. If you've got everything, all your ducks in a row, and you're going to be starting to work there next week or next month. Absolutely.
So you don't think 90 days or 6 months just to make sure that it's a good fit?
No, not at all, because in the meantime, you're getting that 6 or 9 months worth of association with that company. And it's showing you as being a good employee as well, a team member who is proud to be seen to be working for that company. And look, when you leave, if it's under a cloud or something's not gone right, then there are plenty of other ways to get to make that disappear. You can take it off your profile and do something else to close that gap in terms of time. But I think a lot of people see this too literally, Bill, in that they see this as a kind of like the CV, so it's got to be absolutely accurate to the month. You do not have to fill in the role by the month or how long, when you started, the month you started and the month you left, only by the year. So that can kind of fill a gap, right? For you if that is the case. And really, if you finish a role in 2024 and start a new one in 2025, but it's not till now, it's not going to show up that there's been a 5-month gap.
Right. Yeah, I've traditionally waited until I've been with the company for a year, and then I just backdated. I just added on with the correct dates. But I
don't see the need to do that at all.
Okay. All right. It's just, like I said, you lead with intuition, I lead with fear sometimes. So I'm like,
well, we can all be a bit like that, Bill.
I'm going to say this, I love having conversations with you. I always learn something. So it's more than a conversation. Every time we speak, and I hope the guys out there take this with them as well, there is a little bit of knowledge that goes a hell of a long way. And I say this all the time, you correct me. And that's good. I'm not right. I don't know what I'm doing 90% of the time.
We're not married, Bill, isn't it?
I don't know. But here's the thing. I know that I don't know, and I know who to go to for the answers. And I think if I want anyone to take away anything from this conversation, it is that. Lynnaire, can you tell everyone about Linkability and how to get in touch with you?
Sure. So Linkability is my LinkedIn private members community, of which Bill is a member, and he's being great. He's putting some really great content in there and being an excellent contributor. So it is where people who want to learn about LinkedIn can get together and share ideas and knowledge. So there's a website with a wealth of information. We've got a private LinkedIn group, and we have private roundtables or Zoom meetings where people can ask questions, get to know each other, and talk about different ideas. And one of the things I absolutely love about the community is that it has experts in different fields. We've got a cybersecurity expert, a data expert. We've got also a marketing expert, and all these people share their ideas and their knowledge with everybody else. So it's a true community in the sense of everybody giving. And I just give about LinkedIn, which is fabulous, and people can ask questions. And on top of that, Bill, people can sign up to check it out free for 7 days. But look, I have to tell you, it's super, super expensive. Per month, it's going to cost you about $9 US.
Oh my God.
Hugely expensive. You'll have to save up for years to be able to afford it. So free for 10 days, and then I think it's about $9 a month after that. No more than that anyway. Cancel at any time and have access to all the answers about LinkedIn that you'd like to know. So thank you for joining our community, Bill. It's a pleasure to have you. And thank you for having me here today.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I'm going to let you. I'm going to let you go.
Okay.
Are you ready to go?
Are you ready to go? Are you going to stay on and talk about me behind my back?
Well, so after this, I'm going to tell you what. So we're at 6:30. I'm going to have, which is going to scare me. I might not let it show on LinkedIn. I might only let it show on YouTube. A mock interview.
Oh.
So a recruiter who I've sent my resume to, and a job description. We're going to go live, and he is going to put me through an interview. And
well, that would be interesting, won't it? You'll learn a lot from that.
Yeah. And he doesn't know much about my background. I sent him I sent him 2 copies of my resume. You know, which one do you like? We haven't talked about it, and we probably won't talk about that until after the interview ends. Mm-hmm. Because we're going to go into it as if it's a Zoom meeting.
Oh, right.
And I think, again, I'm going to learn about myself, and I'm going to share that I might be extremely introverted when it comes to hosting, but when it comes to talking about me, I freeze up, and I think a lot of people do. So this is more of an exercise in how to sound and be better. So that's happening at 6:30. And then the other thing I wanted to do was welcome first of all, David, I want you to connect with me. So I wanted to say that. Daniel, I love the fact that you are connected. Michael Rivers, we need to get set up for next Saturday. And then there's one other person that is no longer here that I want to come on, but that was really it. Oh, Curtis Brooks. I disagreed with everything that you said on our show on Saturday. No, but it was on comments. So I want to invite you on so that we can have that full-throated conversation. And for me, it's okay to disagree. It's okay to share different ideas. And when you're talking through text and comments, you don't always get the emotion behind it.
No, that's so much better face to face if you can.
So even though, during the conversation, I was like, what the hell are you talking about? I'm inviting you on to the show so we can figure out what the hell were you talking about? So
well, I'm going to go then and leave you to hopefully manage to get him onto the stage. And just to say, Bill, it's been a pleasure. I do hope we get a chance to do this again because it's so much fun. And you ask such great questions and questions that people want to know about in a bit of detail, which is much harder to write about than it is to talk about, because it's really, when you get somebody else coming back with, different comments about things, it's much, much easier to explain. So I appreciate having the opportunity to share some ideas with some people today. So thank you.
Thank you. I look forward to the Zoom call tomorrow. Make sure I have that link. I know I have it, but just double check.
I'll make sure you do.
You have a great community. Thank you so much, Lynnaire.
Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye. Okay, that was a great show with Lynnaire Johnston. One of the things I want to say about Lynnaire and being a part of her private Linkability chat group is that she handles it with such care and graciousness. And I don't know how she does it, but even with her responses and the messages, it feels very personalized and feels as if everyone is being spoken to directly. by someone who cares about them. And you can't beat that. I am so excited in about 15 minutes to be with Peter. And Peter and I are, he's going to be nice to me, hopefully. And we're going to see how I do with the Zoom interview. I'd appreciate it if people not comment on that until the end. If you do decide to join, because it might throw me off. I want to feel as if I'm really doing it. So I'm not, or if you do comment, you can comment. I'm going to hide the comments for myself. So I will see everyone in about 15 minutes, and everyone have a great day. And David, you have to make sure that we're connected. I'll double check, but let's make sure. Bye.